difficulties right now. Please hold. I don't hear anything. There we go. Hello? Okay. I am going to grab a source of hydration real quick. So. Yeah, there is an ad bonus going right now, so. Oh, excuse me. Getting a couple more things trying to set up back here behind the scenes. Because if I was in front of the scenes, it would look really awkward. I did mention on the Twitter that this is going to be the last story out of this particular book. Let me post to the Twitters again. Where am I hearing ads? Oh. Okay, I'm hearing ads on Oni stream. The tripod I usually use for my cell phone decided to break on the clip, so I had to randomly find a way to set up a different one. Because technical difficulties and scuff are just the way of life. Scuff is life. Welcome to VTubing. Okay, I'm going to do this real quick because I would say I worked really hard on this, but I haven't done the updated version yet. Look at all my stuff for the windows and everything else, so. Boop. Haha! See? I need to finish doing the window sticker and everything else, but my hat is a little big. I have to fix that. Oop, I just fell off. Oh, ink. Okay. Oop, that's too small. Maybe. There we go. Yeah, okay. My head's not gonna fall off. Oh, I don't think I have my reactives turned on. Test it real quick. The emotes aren't falling. What the hell? Professional streamer, yada yada yada. No, it's disconnected here. Well, that's... No, that's not the one I want to do. YouTube Studio connects Twitch. Yes, but it's the right Twitch. Will my things fall on my head, or will someone else's things fall on my head? Or will my computer completely crash? Okay, well, that sucks. Guess I'll have to turn off the other things because I can't get them set up while I'm on. So, no chibis. I'm gonna have to not do my ear scritches because I'm not. All the stuff is a pain in the butt. I was also trying to update my merch store stuff on Stream Elements since, you know, it got disconnected for some odd, unknown reason. I'm trying to do 2 different colors of the tote bags. But to do that, I'm also having to do different embroidery, and it refuses to play nice. It did fine with the colored one, but it doesnn't want to do it on the black and white one. This leaf H. But anyway, how has everyone's week been? I think my bots and everything else are working right again, maybe. Okay, bots are up. Bonus round notifications. Yeah, cool. Cool. I did change my sub goals. I'm just like, it would be great if I could get 10 a month. Now we've got 3. Okay. I want to see how this one is set up. Okay. Text color, the outside one. Center color, center one. I'm sure Kel will eventually post a store link. Okay. Black, blue. Okay. That one's fine. Is that white? No. Gray. Ow. It still does not do it right. Keeps trying to do the royal on the outside. Do not want the royal on the outside, I want the royal on the inside. I think I want the white lettering with the gray moon and border and the royal in the center. Not that hard. There is a missing 13-year-old in my city. I did not do it, I promise you. Okay, everyone, I'm sorry I had to turn off the ear scritches because I can't log into the program to get that set up. Oh, look, a Rhyhorn. If anyone needs a Rhyhorn. Just delete that one. Okay, I will work on merch again later. Kind of with the hat, but still. Anyway, Sherlock Holmes tonight. The final story out of the casebook of Sherlock Holmes. Then we will go into another Sherlock Holmes book after, I guess maybe, I know it'll be after Christmas. I don't know if I'm going to try to do anything for New Year's or not. But we will get back to Sherlock Holmes because, like the people at the Sherlockian Sherlock Club said, the only canon is that written by Arthur Conan Doyle. So Arthur's Conan Doyle. Ha ha! And it was really cool that they actually liked my comment that I was going to be doing this today. Okay, let me finish getting... Okay, let's go ahead and get to the study. Oh, where's my study? Not the study Christmas special edition. Anything but that. This one. Do I need to adjust my mic any? I don't sound loud to me. But I also don't have my volume turned up all the way. I will put my sound roughly here. Okay, that's staying just in the border of green and yellow. That's kind of where I like it. That's the place, I like it. Okay. This page, let's see, this book, the story starts on page 245. Why are there so many blank pages in the back of this one? Goes to 261. So... 11 pages. This is going to be a really short night. But hey, we'll get into it because that's what we're here for, right? So our final story for the casebook of Sherlock Holmes. Let me adjust my camera again because it's got me wonky. The Adventure of the Retired Colourman. Sherlock Holmes was in a melancholy and philosophic mood that morning. His alert, practical nature was subject to such reactions. "Did you see him?" he asked. "You mean the old fellow who's just gone out?" "Precisely." "Yes, well, I met him at the door." "What did you think of him?" "A pathetic, futile, broken creature." "Exactly, Watson. Pathetic and futile. But is not all life pathetic and futile? Is not his story a microcosm of the whole world? We reach, we grasp, and what is left in our hands at the end? A shadow, or worse than a shadow, misery." "Is he one of your clients?" "Well, I suppose I may call him so. He's been sent on by the Yard, just as medical men occasionally send their incurables to a quack. They argue that they can do nothing more, and that whatever happens, the patient can be no worse than he is." "What is the matter?" Holmes looked a rather soiled card from the table. "Josiah Amberley. He says he is a junior partner of Brickfall and Amberley, who are manufacturers of artistic materials. You will see their names upon paint boxes. He made this little pile, retired from business at an age of 61, bought a house in Lewisham, and settled down to rest after a life of the ceaseless grind. One would think his future was tolerably assured." "Yes, indeed." Holmes glanced over some notes which he had scribbled upon the back of an envelope. "Retired in 1896, Watson. Early in 1897, he married a woman 20 years younger than himself. A good-looking woman, too, if the photograph does not flatter. A competence, a wife, leisure. It seemed a straight road which lay before him. And yet, within 2 years, he is, as you have seen, broken and miserable a creature as crawls beneath the sun." "But what happened?" "The old story, Watson. A treacherous friend and a fickle wife. It would appear that Amberley has one hobby in life, and it is chess. Not far from him in Lewisham there lives a young doctor who is a chess player. I've noted his name as Dr. Ray Ernest. Ernest has frequently in his house, and intimacy between him and Mrs. Amberley was a natural sequence, for you must admit that our unfortunate client has few outward graces, whatever his inner virtues may be." The couple went off together last week, destination untraced. What is more, the faithless spouse carried off the old man's deed box with her and personal luggage with a good part of his life savings within. Can we find the lady? Can we save the money? A commonplace problem so far as it has developed, and yet a vital one for Josiah Amberley. What will you do about it? Well, the immediate question, my dear Watson, happens to be, what will you do? If you are good enough to understudy me, you know that I am preoccupied with a case this two Coptic patriarchs, which should come into a head today. I really have not time to go out to Lewisham, and yet evidence taken on the spot has special value. The old fellow was quite insistent that I should go, but I explained my difficulty. He is prepared to meet with a representative. By all means, I answered. I confess that I don't see what I can do of much service, but I am willing to do my best. And so it was that on the summer afternoon I set forth to Lewisham, little dreaming that within a week the affair in which I was engaging would be an eager debate of all England. It was late that evening before I returned to Baker Street and gave an account of my mission. Holmes lay with his gaunt figure stretched in his deep chair, his pipe curling forth slow wreaths of acrid tobacco, while his eyelids drooped over his eyes so lazily that he might have almost been asleep, were it not that any halt of questionable passage of my narrative they half lifted, and the two grey eyes, as bright and keen as rapiers, transfixed me with their searching gaze. The Haven is the name of Mr. Josiah Amberley's house, I explained. I think it would interest you, Holmes. It is like some penitrous patrician has sunk into the company of his inferiors. You know that particular quarter, the monotonous brick streets, the weary suburban highways, right in the middle of them, a little island of ancient culture and comfort, lies this little home, surrounded by a high sun-baked wall mottled with lichens and topped with moss, a sort of wall— Cut the poetry, Watson, Holmes said severely. I note that it is a high brick wall. Exactly. I should have known that the Haven— I asked a lounger who was smoking in the street. I have a reason for mentioning him. He was a tall, heavy, mustached man with a military-looking— Oh, God, I'm doing horribly on this one. I'm sorry. I'm going to start over because it's bothering me, and I'm going to hydrate. Can't believe I was stumbling over this one so bad. Okay, let me try this again. This is the fault of live reads, I suppose. The Adventure of the Retired Colourman. Sherlock Holmes was in a melancholy and philosophic mood that morning. His alert, practical nature was subject to such reactions. "Did you see him?" he asked. "You mean the old fellow who has just gone out?" "Precisely." "Yes, I met him at the door." "What did you think of him?" "A pathetic, futile, broken creature." "Exactly, Watson. Pathetic and futile. But is not all life pathetic and futile? It is not his story a microcosm of the world. We reach, we grasp, and what is left in our hands in the end? A shadow. Or worse than a shadow, misery." "Is he one of your clients?" "Well, I suppose I may call him so. He has been sent on by the yard, just as medical men occasionally send their incurables to a quack. They argue that they can do nothing more, and that whatever happens to the patient can be no worse off than he is." "What's the matter?" Holmes took a rather soiled card from the table. Josiah Amberley. He says he was a junior partner in Brickfall and Amberley, who are manufacturers of artistic materials. You will see their names upon the paint boxes. He made a little pile, retired from business at the age of 61, bought a house in Lewisham, and settled down to rest after a life of ceaseless grind. One would think that his future was tolerably assured.
Yes, indeed. Holmes glanced over some notes which he had scribbled upon the back of an envelope.
Retired in 1896, Watson. Early in 1897, he married a woman 20 years younger than himself. A good-looking woman, too, if the photograph does not flatter. A competence, a wife, leisure. It seemed a straight road which lay before him. And yet, within 2 years, here he is, as you have seen, as broken and miserable a creature as crawls beneath the sun.
But what has happened?
The old story, Watson. A treacherous friend and a fickle wife. It would appear that Amberley has one hobby in life, and it is chess. Not far from him, at Lewisham, there lives a young doctor who is also a chess player. I have noted his name as Dr. Ray Ernest. Ernest was frequently in the house, and an intimacy between him and Mrs. Amberley was quite a natural sequence. For you must admit that the unfortunate client has few outward graces, whatever his inner virtues may be. The couple went off together last week, destination untraced. What is more, the faithless spouse carried off the old man's deed box as her personal luggage, with a good part of his life savings within. Can we find the lady? Can we save the money? A commonplace problem so far as it is developed, and yet a vital one for Josiah Amberley.
What will you do about it?
Well, the immediate question, my dear Watson, happens to be, what will you do? If you will be good enough to understudy me. You know that I am preoccupied with this case of the 2 Coptic patriarchs, which should come to a head today. I really have not the time to go out to Lewisham, and yet evidence taken on the spot has a special value. The old fellow was quite insistent that I should go, but I explained my difficulty. He is prepared to meet a representative.
By all means, I answered. I confess I don't see that I can be of much service, but I am willing to do my best. And so it was that on a summer afternoon I set forth to Lewisham, little dreaming that within a week the affair in which I was engaging would be the eager debate of all of England. It was late that evening before I returned to Baker Street and gave an account of my mission. Holmes lay with his gaunt figure stretched in his deep chair, his pipe curling forth slow wreaths of acrid tobacco, while his eyelids drooped over his eyes so lazily that he might almost have been asleep, were it not that at any halt or hesitation of my narrative they half lifted, and 2 grey eyes, as bright and keen as rapiers, transfixed me with their searching gaze. "The Haven is the name of Mr. Josiah Amberley's house," I explained. "I think it would interest you, Holmes. It is like some penurious patrician who has sunk into the company of his inferiors. You know that particular quarter, the monotonous brick streets, the weary suburban highways. Right in the middle of them, a little island of ancient culture and comfort, lies this old home, surrounded by a high sun-baked wall mottled with lichens and topped with moss. The sort of wall—" "Cut the poetry, Watson," Holmes said severely. "I note that it was a high brick wall." "Exactly. I should have known which was the Haven had I not asked the lounger who was smoking in the street. I have a reason for mentioning him. He was a tall, dark, heavily mustached, rather military-looking man. He nodded in answer to my inquiry and gave me a curiously questioning glance, which came back to my memory a little later. I had hardly entered the gateway before I saw Mr. Amberley coming down the drive. I only had a glimpse of him this morning, and he certainly gave me the impression of a strange creature. But when I saw him in full light, his appearance was even more abnormal." "I have, of course, studied it, and yet I should be interested to have your impressions," said Holmes. He seemed to be like a man who was literally bowed down by care. His back was curved as though he carried a heavy burden. Yet he was not a weakling that I had first imagined, for his shoulders and chest have the framework of a giant, though his figure tapers away in a pair of spindling legs.
Left she wrinkled, right one smooth.
I did not observe that.
No, he wouldn't. I spotted his artificial limb, but proceed.
I was struck by the snaky locks of grizzled hair which curled from under his old straw hat, and his face with its fierce, eager expression and the deep-lined features.
Very good, Watson. What did he say?
He began pouring out the story of his grievances. We walked down the drive together, and of course I took a good look around. I've never seen a worse-kept place. The garden was all running with the seed, giving me an impression of wild neglect in which the plants had been allowed to find the way of nature rather than of art. How any decent woman could have tolerated such a state of things, I don't know. The house, too, was slatternly to the last degree, but the poor man seemed himself to be aware of it, and to be trying to remedy it, for a great pot of green paint stood in the center of the hall, and he was carrying a thick brush in his left hand. He had been working on the woodwork. He took me to his dingy sanctum, and we had a long chat. Of course, he was disappointed that you had not come to yourself. I hardly, he said, that so humble an individual as myself, especially after my heavy financial loss, could obtain the complete attention of so famous a man as Mr. Sherlock Holmes. I showed him that the financial question did not arise. No, of course, it is art for art's sake with him, said he. But even on the artistic side of crime, he might have found something here to study. And human nature, Dr. Watson, the black ingratitude of it all. When did I ever refuse one of her requests? Was ever a woman so pampered? And that young man, he might have been my own son. He had the run of the house, and yet, see how they have treated me. Oh, Dr. Watson, it is dreadful, dreadful world. That was the burden of his song for an hour or more. He had, it seems, no suspicion of an intrigue. They lived alone save for a woman who comes by in the day and leaves every evening at 6. On that particular evening, old Amberley, wishing to give his wife a treat, had taken 2 upper circle seats at the Haymarket Theatre. At the last moment she had complained of a headache and had refused to go. He had to go alone. There seemed to be no doubt about the fact, for he produced an unused ticket which he had taken for his wife.
That is remarkable, most remarkable, said Holmes, whose interest in the case seemed to be rising. Pray continue, Watson. I find your narrative most arresting. Did you personally examine this ticket? You did not perchance take in the number.
It so happens that I did, I answered with some pride. It chanced to be in my old school number, 31, and so it was stuck in my head.
Excellent, Watson. His seat, then, was either 30 or 32.
Quite so, I answered, with some mystification. And on B row.
That is most satisfactory. What else did he tell you?
He showed me his strong room, as he called it. It really is a strong room, like a bank, with an iron door and shutter, burglar-proof as he claimed. However, the woman seems to have had a duplicate key, and between them they had carried off some £7,000 worth of cash and securities.
Securities? How could they dispose of those?
He said that he had given the police a list and that he had hoped that they would be unsaleable. He had got back to the theatre about midnight, and found the place plundered, the door and window open and the fugitives gone. There was no letter or message, nor has he heard of his word since. He at once gave the alarm to the police. Holmes brooded for some minutes.
You say he was painting. What was he painting?
Well, he was painting the passage, but he had already spoke of painting the door and the woodwork of this room I spoke of.
Does it not strike you as a strange occupation in the circumstances?
One must do something to ease an aching heart. That was his own explanation. It was eccentric, no doubt, but he is clearly an eccentric man. He tore up one of his wife's photographs in my presence, tore it up furiously in the tempest of passion. I never wished to see her damned face again, he shrieked.
Anything more, Watson?
Yes, one thing which struck me more than anything else. I'd driven to the Blackhurst station and had caught my train there. When just as it was starting, I saw a man dart into the carriage next to my own. You know that I have a quick eye for faces, Holmes. It was undoubtedly the tall, dark man whom I had addressed in the street. I saw him once more in London Bridge, and then I lost him in the crowd. But I'm convinced that he was following me. No doubt, said Holmes. A tall, dark, heavily mustached man, you say, with grey-tinted sunglasses. Holmes, you're a wizard. I do not say so, but he had grey-tinted sunglasses. And a Masonic tie-pin. Holmes. Quite simple, my dear Watson, but let us get down to what is practical. I must admit to see that you are on the case. What seemed to me to be absurdly simple, as to be hardly worth my notice, is rapidly assuming to be a different aspect. It is true that though in your mission you have missed everything of importance, yet even those things which you have obtruded themselves upon your notice gave rise to serious thought. What have I missed? Don't be hurt, dear fellow. You know that I am quite impersonal. No one else would have done better, but possibly not so well. But clearly you have missed some vital points. What is the opinion of the neighbours about this man Amberley and his wife? That surely is of importance. What of Dr. Ernest? Was he the gay Lothario one would expect? With your natural advantages, Watson, every lady is your helper and accomplice. What about the girl at the post office, or the green of the grocer? Can I picture you whispering soft nothings with a young lady at the Blue Anchor, and having received hard somethings in exchange? All this you have left undone. It can still be done. It has been done, thanks to the telephone and the help of the yard. I can usually get my essentials without leaving this room. As a matter of fact, my information confirms the man's story. He has a local reputation of being a miser, as well as a harsh and exacting husband. That he had a large sum of money in a strong room of this is certain. So also is that the young Dr. Ernest, an unmarried man, played chess with Amberley and probably played the fool with his wife. All this seems plain sailing, and yet one would think that there was no more to be said. And yet, where lies the difficulty? In my imagination, perhaps. Well, leave it there, Watson. Let us escape from this weary workaday world by the side door of music. Karina sings tonight at Albert Hall, and we still have time to dress, dine, and enjoy. In the morning I was up betimes, but some toast crumbs and 2 empty eggshells told me that my companion was earlier still. I found a scribbled note upon the table. Dr. Watson, there are 1 or 2 points of contact which I should wish to establish with Josiah Amberley. When I have done so, we can dismiss this case, or not. I would only ask that you be on hand about 3 o'clock, as I conceive it possible that I may want you. S.H. I saw nothing of Holmes all day, but at the hour named he returned, grave, preoccupied, and aloof. At such times it was wiser to leave him to himself. Has Amberley been here yet? No. I am expecting him. He was not disappointed, for presently the old fellow arrived with a very worried and puzzled expression upon his austere face. I had a telephone, Mr. Holmes. I can make nothing of it. He handed it over, and Holmes read it aloud. Come at once without fail. Can give you information as to your recent loss. Elman. The Vicarage. Dispatched at 2:10 from Little Purlingham, said Holmes. Little Purlingham is in Essex, I believe, not far from Frinton. Well, of course, you will start at once. This is evidently from a responsible person, the vicar of the place. Where is my Crockford? Yes, here we have him. J.C. Elman, M.A., living of Monsieur cum Little Purlington. Look up the trains, Watson. There is one at 5:20 from Liverpool Station. Excellent. You had best go with him, Watson. We may need help or advice. Clearly we have come to a crisis in this affair. But our client seemed by no means eager to start. It's perfectly absurd, Mr. Holmes, he said. What can this man possibly know about what has occurred? It is a waste of time and money.
He would not have telegraphed you if he did not know of something. Wire him at once that you are coming.
I don't think I shall go. Holmes assumed his sternest aspect.
It would make the worst possible impression both on the police and upon myself, Mr. Amberley, if when so obvious a clue arose, you should refuse to follow it up. We should feel that you were not really in earnest in this investigation.
Our client seemed horrified at the suggestion. Of course I shall go if you look at it that way, he said. On the face of it, it seems absurd to suppose that this person knows anything, but if you think...
I do think,
said Holmes with emphasis. And so we were launched upon our journey. Holmes took me aside before we left the room and gave me one word of counsel which showed that he considered the matter to be of importance.
Whatever you do, see that he really does go,
said he.
Should he break away or return, get to the nearest telephone exchange and send the single word, bolted. I will arrange here that it shall reach me wherever I am.
Little Burlington is not an easy place to reach, for it is on a branch line. My remembrance of the journey is not a pleasant one, for the weather was hot, the train slow, and my companion sullen and silent, hardly talking at all, save to make an occasional sardonic remark as to the futility of our proceedings. When we at last reached the little station, it was a 2-mile drive before we came to the vicarage, where a big, solemn, rather pompous clergyman received us in his study. Our telegram lay before him. "Well, gentlemen," he asked, "what can I do for you?" "We came," I explained, "in answer to your wire." "My wire? I sent no wire." "I mean the wire which you sent to Mr. Josiah Amberley about his wife and his money." "If this is a joke, sir, it is a very questionable one," said the vicar angrily. "I have never heard of the gentleman you name, and I have not sent a wire to anyone." Our client and I looked at each other in amazement. "Perhaps there is some mistake," said I. "Are there perhaps 2 vicarages? Here is the wire itself, signed Ellman, and dated from the vicarage." "There is only one vicarage, sir, and only one vicar, and this wire is a scandalous forgery, the origin of which shall certainly be investigated by the police. Meanwhile, I can see no possible object in prolonging this interview." So Mr. Amberley and I found ourselves on the roadside in what seemed to be the most primitive village in England. We made for the telegraph office, but it was already closed. There was a telephone, however, at the little railway arms, and by it I got into touch with Holmes, who shared our amazement at the result of our journey.
"Most singular," said the distinct voice. "Most remarkable. I must fear, my dear Watson, that there is no return train tonight. I have unwittingly condemned you to the horrors of a country inn. However, there is always nature, Watson. Nature and Josiah Amberley. You can be in close commune with both." I heard a dry chuckle as we turned away. It was soon apparent to me that my companion's reputation as a miser was not undeserved. He had grumbled at the expense of the journey, had insisted upon traveling 3rd class, and was now clamorous in his objections to the hotel bill. Next morning, when we did at last arrive in London, it was hard to say which of us was in the worse humour. "You'd best take Baker Street as we pass," said I. "Mr. Holmes may have some fresh instructions." "If they're not worth more than the last ones, they're not much use," said Amberley with a malevolent scowl. Nonetheless, he kept me company. I was already warned Holmes by the telegram of the hour of our arrival, but we found a message waiting that he was at Lewisham, and would expect us there. That was a surprise, but an even greater one was to find that he was not alone in the sitting-room of our client. A stern-looking, impassive man sat beside him, a dark man with grey-tinted glasses and a large Masonic pin projecting from his tie. "This is my friend Mr. Barker," said Holmes. "He has been interesting himself in our business, Mr. Josiah Amberley, though we have been working independently, but we both have the same question to ask you."
Mr. Amberley sat down heavily. He sensed impending danger. I read it in his straining eyes and his twitching features.
"What is the question, Mr. Holmes?" "Only this. What did you do with the bodies?"
The man sprang to his feet with a hoarse scream. He clawed into the air with his bony hands. His mouth was open, and for an instant he looked like some horrible bird of prey. In a flash we caught a glimpse of the real Josiah Amberley, a misshapen demon with a soul as distorted as his body. As he fell back into his chair, he clapped his hands to his lips as if to stifle a cough. Holmes sprang up his throat like a tiger and twisted his face towards the ground. A white pellet fell from between his gaping lips.
"No shortcuts, Josiah Ashley. Things have been done decently and in order. What about it, Baker?"
"I have a cab at the door," said our taciturn companion.
"It was only a few hundred yards to the station. We will go together. You can stay here, Watson. I shall be back within half an hour."
The old Colourman had the strength of a lion in that great trunk of his, but he was helpless in the hands of two experienced manhandlers. Wriggling and twisting, he was dragged to the waiting cab, and I was left to my solitary vigil in the ill-omened house. In less time than he had named, however, Holmes was back, in the company of a smart young police inspector.
"I left Barker to look for the formalities," said Holmes. "You had not met Barker, Watson. He is my hated rival upon the Surrey shore. When you said a tall, dark man, it was not difficult for me to complete the picture. He has several good cases to his credit, has he not, Inspector?"
"He has certainly interfered several times," the inspector said with reserve.
"His methods are irregular, no doubt, like my own. The irregulars are sometimes useful, you know. You, for example, with your compulsory warning about whatever he said being used against him, could never have bluffed his rascal into what was virtually a confession."
"Perhaps not, but we get there all the same, Mr. Holmes. Don't imagine that we had not formed our own views in this case, and that we would not have laid our hands on our man. You excuse us for feeling sore when you jump in with the methods which we cannot use, and rob us of the credit."
"There shall be no such robbery, McKinnon. I assure you that I efface myself from now onwards. As to Barker, he has done nothing save what I told him."
The inspector seemed considerably relieved.
"That is very handsome of you, Mr. Holmes. Praise or blame can matter little to you, but it is very difficult to us when the newspapers begin to ask questions." "Quite so, but they are pretty sure to ask questions anyhow, so it will be as well to have answers. What will you say, for example, when the intelligent and enterprising reporter asks you what the exact points which were aroused your suspicion, and finally gave you the certain conviction as to the real crimes?"
The inspector looked puzzled.
"We don't seem to have got any real facts yet, Mr. Holmes. You say that the prisoner, in the presence of 3 witnesses, practically confessed by trying to commit suicide, that he had murdered his wife and her lover. What other facts have you?" "Have you arranged for a search?"
"There are 3 constables on their way.
Then you will soon get the clearest facts of all. The bodies cannot be far away. Try the cellars or the garden. It should not take long to dig up the likely places. This house is older than the water pipes. There must be a disused well somewhere. Try your luck there."
"But how did you know it? How was it done?"
"I'll show you first how it was done, then I will give you the explanation to which is due you, and even more to my long-suffering friend here, has been invaluable throughout. But first, I will give you the insight into the man's mentality. It is a very unusual one, so much so that I think his destination is more likely to be Broadmoor than the scaffold. He has, to a high degree, the sort of mind which one associates with a medieval Italian nature rather than the modern Briton. He was a miserable miser who made his wife so wretched by his niggardly ways that she was a ready prey for any adventurer. Such as one came upon the scene in the person of this chess-playing doctor. Amberley excelled at chess, one mark, Watson, of a scheming mind. Like all misers, he was a jealous man, and his jealousy became a frantic mania. Rightly or wrongly, he suspected an intrigue. He determined to have his revenge, and he planned it with diabolical cleverness. Come here.
Holmes led us along a passage with much certainty, as if he had lived in the house, and halted upon an open door of the strong room.
"Pooh, what an awful smell of paint!" cried the inspector. "That was our first clue," said Holmes. "You can thank Dr. Watson's observations for that, though he failed to draw the inference. I set my foot upon the trail. Why should this man at such a time be filling his house with strong odors? Obviously to cover up some other smell he wished to conceal. Some guilty smell which should suggest suspicions. Then came the idea of the room such as you see here, with an iron door and shutter, a hermetically sealed room. Put those two facts together, and where do they lead? I could only determine by the examining of the house. I had already certain that the case was serious, for I had examined the box office chart in the Haymarket Theatre, another of Dr. Watson's bull's-eyes, and had ascertained that neither B30 nor B32 for the upper circle had been occupied that night. Therefore, Amberley had not been to the theatre, and his alibi fell to the ground. He made a bad slip when he allowed my sure friend to notice the number of the seats taken for his wife. The question now arose how I might be able to examine the house. I sent an agent to the impossible village I could think of, and summoned my man to it in such an hour that he could not possibly get back. To prevent any miscarriage, Dr. Watson occupied him. The good vicar's name I took, of course, out of my Crockford. Do I make it all clear to you?
"It is masterly," said the inspector in an odd voice.
There being no fear of interruption, I proceeded to burgle the house. Burglary has always been an alternative profession, had I cared to adopt it, and I had little doubt that I should have come to the front. Observe what I found. You see the gas pipe along the skirting here. Very good. It rises in an angle of the wall. And there's a tap here in the corner. The pipe runs out into a strong room, as you can see, and ends in the plaster rose in the ceiling in the center, where it is concealed by the ornamentation. That end is wide open. At any moment, by turning the outside tap, the room could be flooded with gas. With door and shutter closed and trap on full, I should not give 2 minutes of unconscious sensation to anyone shut up in this little chamber. By what devilish device he decoyed them there I do not know, but once inside the door, they were at his mercy.
The inspector examined the pipe with interest.
"One of our officers mentioned the smell of gas," said he, "but of course the window and the door were open, and the paint, or some of it, was already about. He had begun to work on the painting the day before, according to his story. But what next, Mr. Holmes?" "Well, that came an accident which I rather unexpected to myself. I was slipping through the pantry window in the early dawn when I felt a hand inside my collar, and a voice said, 'Not now, you rascal. What are you doing in here?' When I could twist my head round, I looked into the tinted spectacles of my friend and rival, Mr. Barker. It was a curious foregathering, and set both of us smiling. It seems that he had been engaged by Dr. Ray Ernest's family to make some investigations, and had come to the same conclusion as to foul play. He had watched the house for some days, and had spotted Dr. Watson as one of the obvious suspicious characters who called here. He could hardly arrest Watson, but when he saw the man actually climbing out of the pantry window, where there came a limit to his restraint. Of course, I told him how matters stood, and we continued the case together.
Why him, and why not us?
Because it was in my mind to put that little test which answered so admirably. I fear you would not have gone so far.
The inspector smiled.
Well, maybe not, Mr. Holmes. I understand that I have your word, that you step right out of the case now and turn in all your results over to us. Certainly, that is always my custom. Well, in the name of the force, I thank you. It seems a clear case, as you put it, and there can't be much difficulty over the bodies. I'll show you a grim little bit of evidence, said Holmes, and I'm sure that Amberley himself never observed it. You'll get results, Inspector, by always putting yourself in the other fellow's place, and thinking what you would do yourself. It takes some imagination, but it pays. Now, we will suppose that you were shut up in the little room, had not 2 minutes to live, but wanted to get even with a fiend who was probably mocking at you from the other side of the door. What would you do?
Write a message.
Exactly. You would like to tell people how you died. No use writing it on paper, that would be seen. If you wrote on the wall, some eye might rest upon it. Now, look here. Just above the skirting scribbled in purple in illegible pencil. That's all. What do you make of that?
Well, it's only a foot above the ground. The poor devil was on the floor and dying as he wrote it. He lost his senses before he could finish.
He was writing, "We were murdered."
That's how I read it, if you find an indelible person on the body. Well, look for it, you may be sure, but those securities. Clearly there was no robbery at all, and yet he did possess those bonds. We verified that.
You may be sure he has hidden them in a safe place. Then the whole elopement had passed into history, he suddenly would have discovered them, announced that the guilty couple had relented and sent back the plunder, or had dropped it on the way.
You certainly seem to have met every difficulty, said the inspector. Of course, he was bound to call us in, but why should he have gone to you? I can't understand.
Pure swank, Holmes answered. He felt so clever that he was so sure of himself that he imagined no one could touch him. He could say to any suspicious neighbor, "Look at the steps I have taken. I have consulted not only the police, but even Sherlock Holmes."
The inspector laughed. "I must forgive you your even, Mr. Holmes," said he. "It's a workmanlike job, as I remember." A couple of days later, my friend tossed me a copy of the bi-weekly North Surrey Observer, under a series of flaming headlines which began with "The Haven Horror" and ended with "Brilliant Police Investigation." There was a packed column of print which gave the first consecutive account of the affair. The concluding paragraph is typical of the whole, and it ran thus. "The remarkable acumen by which Inspector McKinnon deduced from the smell of paint and some other smell of that of gas, for example, might be concealed. The bold deduction that the strong room might also be the death chamber, and the subsequent injury which led to the discovery of the bodies in a disguised well, cleverly concealed by a dog kennel, should live in the history of crime as a standing example of the intelligence of our professional detectives." "Well, well, McKinnon is a good fellow," said Holmes with some tolerant smile. "You can file it with our archives, Watson. Some day the true story might be told." But yeah, Holmes really should just randomly teleport out to people. That particular story, where Holmes draws the gun on the guy, that was early in the book. I'm trying to think of which one it was.
I think that was from the Sussex Vampire. Really should have read the Sussex Vampire for Halloween. But it was a little past Halloween when it happened. Hey, Oni. Thank you for the bits. Is it gonna play? There we go. Into your water, a valley of plenty, a valley of plenty. Whoa. Yeah. I only had the one story, so. I guess after the holidays, I'll come back with. I'll have to let's see which books I haven't read yet. I think it's The Return of Sherlock Holmes. It's been a month since I did the poll to see which one we do. Yes, hydration. Hydration is a good thing. Oh. And now we're in the ads. But I honestly don't know who was seeing this without the ads. Oh. But since this was the last story I had in this book, I'm not going to read from it next week. I do have to get some stuff set up for my holiday. As I got the... Let's see, what's the name of this book that I got? Never really thought a Christian publishing company would do the Scary Book of Christmas for, but I'm going to be getting some stories out of this so I can put those on my holiday loop. Ooh, the Bella Fauna's in here. Nice. The Yule Lads. Good. I needed them. I didn't have their stuff yet. Zwarte Piet. Ooh. The Maril Red. Nice. Oh, the original Nutcracker. Hello. This is just the stories about the stories, which is a little disappointing. I was hoping it would be the actual stories. Ooh, The Wild Hunt. That's honestly one of my favorite ones. Okay, I might have to look up some of these stories because this just tells us about them, but it doesn't actually tell the stories. That's disappointing. And I wanted some of those scary ghost stories. Oh. St. Nicholas and the Butchered Children. Sounds fun. Yay, the ads are over, I think. So many woos. Let me do the woo. It's on here somewhere. Woo. bookstore. Okay, so I should really finish decorating in here. Because I know I've got all the stuff that I was going to do the decorations with, so just haven't unpacked the boxes yet. If anyone, I don't know if anyone was really following me last year about this time, but before I got affiliate, which was on the 19th, so the 19th is going to be affiliate anniversary, which, what was I going to, oh, I was going to play Storyteller. Yeah, got the Storyteller game, which was gifted to me roundabout on Throne. So it'll be interesting. And they added a narrator, so don't have to narrate it. But I'm going to go ahead and play through that on my anniversary, so it'll be kind of cool. And, yeah, so I guess kind of ending the night early since I don't have any more story to read for this book. I need to go through my checklist and check off the ones that I've done. I need to start putting all the ones that I've read on my black shelf, so I'll know that I've read them. Or if anyone else wants to go through my list and tell me which ones I've read and just, let me know, I can go do it that way. I've gotten a lot of them, but if anyone has seen my, where is it? My listing of ones I've done, well, at least my year in review, that was massive. Let me go to this one. Oh, maybe not this one. Why don't you go to this one? Yeah, I'll go to this one. Let me see if I can find. Where did I put that thing? Screenshots. I love how my computer just saves all my screenshots whether I want it to or not. Come on. Is that it? No, that's the thing about what we're doing. Did I not save it? And tell me it didn't save the one that I actually wanted it to. Oh. Give me a second. I'll get to it here. Oh, my computer's laggy right now. Okay. Now I can pull it up. Just have to go to the right folder for it. Da 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 da. Now I'm going to have that song stuck in my head. Okay. How many pictures do I have in this folder? Too many, apparently. Not at all a sim for this person. Okay, sort by date. And they're not even all sorted right. Okay, I just saved it by date. Why is it not cooperating here? Oh, there it is. Wow, that is big. Too big. But I have streamed a lot this year. I had 129 streams. A majority of them were me reading books. With a few special events in between. I mean, I did stream when I was in Colorado. I just did like scenery ones and just random live ones. But 129 streams. Which I don't know where the 993 hours watch goes. That's, I guess you guys, I don't know. But I got 150 followers within the last year, which is just mind-boggling. I mean, it's just crazy to me, but anyway. Let's see if we can find some friendly face to raid. Oops, if I get it on the right window. Oh, dusk just started, and Oni, are you streaming? Okay, Oni is on. Cool. Let us raid Oni, or let me raid Oni. However many people are actually here. Because honestly, it says there's only one. But hey, a raid's a raid, right? So, do you have the random raid messages? Raids for followers. Raids for subs. And raid for Oni. So, thank you everyone for popping by. I know it was a short stream, but still. Again, thank you. Friday Night Fairy Tales is still going on tomorrow. So I will hopefully see you all then. If not, I hope you have a good afternoon, good evening, good night, whichever it may be for you. Get some rest, take care, and if I don't see you before the holidays are over, I hope you have a happy holiday. Other than that, night everyone.